some of you already know this format by now, so we'll take a couple of minutes. But we have Debashish and Helene on the other side of the screen. Hi guys, thank you for joining us every day. They're unfortunately in Pune right now and not Leh. So I'm sure they would have enjoyed the landscape of Leh a lot more than the chaos of Pune right now. But thank you for joining us. Both Debashish and Helene are behind Farside Collective. And though I think the base of the collective started off in Leh, they've been moving around the country and a little bit like the offset pitara, they go wherever they can make their channels of creativity come through. And yes, just to give some of you, because I know a lot of people who are here are not familiar with the collective, and I thought maybe I can introduce you guys for a couple of minutes, and that will allow more people to come in as well, and then straight into it. So I had the amazing opportunity to actually see what these guys do in physical form earlier this year, because along with another collective, they'd organized an art book festival in Jaipur, and Offset had come as a programming partner, trying to figure out what can be done in the timeline that we had. And actually, it was really amazing to have a whole bunch of independent artists come together and put their books out for sale, but also create like communication channels between independent publishers of all formats. And we managed to have a few talks and conversations, and also a workshop session that I know Anubhav joined in for a little bit as well during those days. And it was quite a fun experience for us to engage with people interested in visuals and the book format, but not necessarily photographers themselves. And I think that's that one point where I was like, okay, so we guys are interested in reaching out to like similar channels of breaking out of photo worlds in some ways, and like let's decentralize that conversation a little bit. So Farside started in was it 2015?
2015, yes.
Yeah. In 2015 in Leh, which we'll get to how Leh happened, I think, in our conversation as well. And they have a really beautiful space over there where they have an active dark room. And Helene, who also comes from a design background and interest, I think incorporates printing methodologies and experiments with design, experiments with fashion and design. And so it's an open space where both conversations on photography and design kind of run parallel. They have a bookstore there where they, I think, sell other zine material along with their own publications. And they have, of course, their own publishing unit over there. And
all production happens elsewhere, not there.
Right now, it's kind of, I know you guys have some stock in Pune, thankfully for us. So we'll be able to see some of their books today as well, you know, through this visual screen. And they also organize one residency every year, but the one, I mean, I think you take 4 residents or 3 residents.
Four
Residents. And mostly with the focus on printed material as well. So let's get started and let's talk to you guys about being in Leh. How did that happen? Where did that come in? Because I think before that, Debashish, you mentioned you were in Delhi at that time.
Before Leh, I was in Ahmedabad. I was studying in Ahmedabad.
Right.
And I went to Leh starting in 2011 or 12 maybe. I was volunteering with some organizations for some small teaching things in schools or making some furniture, whatever.
Right.
So that's how I ended up there. And then I again went next year again. And then 2014 was like the bigger step because I was working for Intact. It's a Delhi-based all India, the national
the main office.
Yeah, with the office in Delhi, the head office in Delhi. So I was hired by them to make a book on local building and heritage and patrimony for built and unbuilt heritage and stuff. So
Right.
that's how I ended up spending good amount of time there from 2014 in 2014. And then one thing led to another. Then we met some more people.
And
Then
that was the both of you. Sorry, at Intact, Helene, were you also involved in that?
No, no, no.
no.
So before Leh, I was in France. Obviously, I'm from France. I came in 2012 to India to study and was in Ahmedabad at a certain point of time, and that's when I met Debashish.
Okay.
And then when he was doing this work for Intact and a lot of traveling, and started also to initiate other like workshops and sort of Reiki travels around heritage in Kargil, actually, more than Leh in the beginning. I joined it at that point of time, and yeah, we're still working on some of the things that began at that time, basically.
Yeah.
That's when it all began.
Yeah.
It's interesting actually because you did mention, so 2015 you guys actually started navigating between the border villages of
Yes.
Kargil and then
And I mean,
moving into Leh, right?
yeah, I mean the other village is close to Kargil, but there is no road. You have to go from Leh, and so
And
yeah,
then navigate, right?
yeah.
And so this was a research, and I mean, what was the focus of your research at that point in time?
So in 2015, some students actually came with me to. That's what that time I called Helene also to come to Kargil. So they came with me for doing a research project on a village very close to Kargil. It's called Hundarman, and that village was in Pakistan till 71, and in the liberation of Bangladesh war, India pushed its western border by a couple of around 30 kilometers, and many villages came to India at that time. So this was one of the village from that time which became India from Pakistan, and many people went to Pakistan. Some people stayed back. So we found a old village of about 20 houses, not 20, 25 houses, all broken down. So actually the project was to make drawings of the site.
Okay.
But we ended up going inside and finding all this daily regular objects which people have left behind because they couldn't take them. They were in a hurry, to leave the country. So they left food also, and then they left kitchenware, clothes, agriculture equipment, fishing equipment.
Right.
So there's a lot of objects which was left behind.
Yeah. Initially, we started working together in the capacity of like architecture, patrimony, built heritage.
Okay.
And we were going to document, measure, draw that village of Hunderman. And a few students of architecture also had come at that time. And it was not at all planned that we would have access to the inside of the houses. That was through the help of one of the local inhabitants of Hunderman.
Okay.
Because like a new Hunderman village was built later on, and there are still people living there. And
that was right next door to the
200 meters,
like
300 meters.
Uphill hike,
So thanks to him, we entered the places and unlocked the boxes and saw all these objects. So from that point of time, there was a shift from like our initial intent, and we were more like fascinated with these objects and small like personal histories as well as the big history and things like memory and trace. Like we're still exploring that kind of.
Yeah.
And that led to, can I say, the first Farside Collective publication?
No, actually, before that we did, before that we did something called Randomly.
Okay.
Randomly is something which is very random. She has some drawings, I had some photographs, drawings, whatever, stories. We put everything together to make a zine called Randomly. But then from that Hunderman project started the first zine, which is called as the Institute of Daily Objects.
Yeah.
And I remember I saw this in Jan, and I was like, this I want. Like that was the first. It was so. It's also interesting the way that you visually kind of work with it. It's called, I mean, of course, Institute of Daily Objects. And it was interesting because usually there's a tendency to museumize, I guess, if that's a word. But it was interesting that you took the position of the Institute of Daily Objects, and I thought that was quite an interesting shift as well. But also in the presentation of the objects that were there and their oral histories or stories connected to it, in that sense. Maybe we can see that scene and see a couple of pages within it just to give our audience a kind of an idea of the format of it.
This is called as the Institute of Daily Objects. So I made a logo which is very mundane, regular object, like a computer thing.
Yeah.
And I wanted to make it a very manual kind, like how public manuals.
It's like a manual almost. And I saw it and I was like, what is this? Little directives for things.
And this has like photographs, all found photographs, and photographs from that village which we photo documented. These things are from that village where we went. These ones. Then
maybe we can see this if you can share your screen, because I think
I can show you the
look a little. One can see more clearly on the screen sharing. Perfect. Yes.
So this is called as the Institute of Daily Objects, and these are photographs which were found. These were not necessarily from that village. Also, these were also from some other, because I have this habit of going to small whatever places to buy photographs. Na people sell purane photos, log bech dete hain. Like,
I remember in Jaipur, that frame guy came with
yeah.
And the whole festival just kind of ran to one guy on a rickety cart. Like,
yeah.
So yeah, I gauged you were a coder at that point of time, like me. Yeah.
I'm also very much interested in statues. So this statue is from a random person, which I don't know from where. It's from Majuli village in Assam. So this is like a statue of a common man, because it's an Institute of Daily Objects. The patrons also should be like a common, regular person.
Right.
Yeah, it details the history of the museum. It's all fictional, like. Then these are objects which I found, a book. Then this is like the idea of how this the objects in this museum should not be important, and because it's a museum of daily objects, and it should not have important objects in the museum. So it's again a fiction that if any object archived in the museum becomes important or attracts too much attention, it needs to be destroyed. That's why this IWV, this is like adapted into this narrative. Parking tickets.
Reversal of what is the value of the important and what is considered to be sacred and not.
Right.
And all these texts that go with it are also they're semi-fictional texts. So they're
these are part fiction, part reality also. Yeah.
Right.
You can go back maybe to the IWA page and say like what is narrated there.
Okay, so it says one of the earliest promoter of the Institute of Daily Objects, destroying a regular flower vase. This vase gained popularity, so the management decided to get rid of it for the greater good of the entire institution.
Right.
So IWV is adapted in this.
I think that kind of explains the stand you guys are taking on the institute as opposed to the museum.
These are from the village, huh? This
and so,
from the Hunderman village.
From the village itself.
Yeah.
So most of the other stuff is from the village, right?
Yeah.
All of these, okay.
The photographs are from village. This is not from the village.
Right.
But this also.
Cool. And it's ongoing?
It's ongoing actually. It's a new thing is mostly can be like right now it's on the thinking phase. The next it
Okay.
is so old now, and
This
we
was
have not.
2015 itself, or
Yeah,
2016.
yeah, 16 I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's, I mean, and I know that you guys decided, you just given us a little glimpse of what the zine looks like. And so you guys had decided to work with the zine format in this. I'm curious to know like how and why this zine came into form for you guys for a subject.
I think like originally, probably in 2015 when we made the first one randomly, I think I was familiar with zine coming from France and whatever I had been exposed to, and sort of showed Debashish, hey, there is something like this, and why don't we collect our sketches and poems and basically whatever we had in our notebooks into a publication,
Right.
which we also traded. We were very inspired by our adventures in like the Silk Road in all of Ladakh. So the first zine we ever made was never sold. It was always traded for something else. So, for example, we sat in Leh in the main bazaar and got like apricots and I don't know what in exchange. And I think we really liked it, making that kind of thing together. So it became a habit to make one anytime we had a workshop, like even architecture workshop or measure drawing,
Whatever.
heritage mapping workshop. Like it always became like a tangible outcome that each participant would carry back.
Right.
So I think we really developed that the joy actually of just making something like that. And then I think it was fitting. I think the making tangible this and intangible patrimony basically, and all those stories that
Right.
we were
Working on it. Yeah.
then I think gradually it also allowed, I think you said at some point that it was you had practiced photography and left it aside, and it making a zine or a photo book, it was a way to again practice photography in another way, and not just have a hard drive full of images
Right.
with digital photography, and relook at that and build new stories around it.
Yeah. Also, at the same time, making a zine is something which I think is the most fundamental and basic one can do in publications, no? Because since last year, 2 years, we are making books also with zines, but making book is much more complicated and much more time taking and much because we do the entire only the print happens from outside, the binding we do at home in a studio.
Right.
And so it's very challenging, I find, to make a book. So zine is something which is, I think, I'm not saying it's easy, but I think it's easy in expression. It's very difficult.
Also, you're just like it's a more of an immediate reaction, maybe at some point as compared to the book form. And these zines, were they printed in Leh itself, or were they also from
in Leh? No. Zines can be printed in Leh. Actually, we have a good enough printer in our studio also. So we, most black and white zines and our biannual zine we publish beyond. We publish from our studio. We print from our studio because our printer is good enough to support basic zine quality printing.
You guys are busy sitting in binding or putting these pieces together in Leh and shipping them off to wherever they need to.
Yeah, totally. Also, just to quickly add, printing zines or small magazines from outside is not financially viable. Like, very honestly.
The whole point would be to do it at a base level, quick fix kind of a format.
Yeah.
If in that one starts getting into details, then you're.
That's why we decided to invest little money in a good quality A3 size printer so that basic things can print at home, from the studio itself. Yeah.
I mean, one more thing that I actually found quite interesting as as a strategy for some of you who might be thinking of going into large scale, like, or many zines at one point in 1 year kind of project, is that you actually, for some zines, I know you were doing a print on demand kind of a system almost, right? Like you do one block of printing,
Yes.
and you kind of wait to see like till a whole bunch of people can in their next round, right?
Totally.
This is because we travel a lot.
Also,
so we have to handle only a certain, I guess it's from that practicality also.
Because we travel different parts.
You can't always carry boxes of these guys around.
We have been printing more volume when we go to a book festival. Then we can print little more, then exhaust the entire inventory and then reprint.
And but that's also something that, because I know with a lot of photographers who get into publishing, and sometimes mostly self-publishing, the thing is that you have to do such a large print run. And in some cases, it's completely handmade. So, you to do like 500, 700 copies of that. I mean, I don't know what print run is for, what you guys.
We do like 50, huh?
Yeah.
Not possible to make 500 books in the studio.
That's like in an offset scenario, right? But at the same time, then you have some works that you create that don't fit into that offset.
Yeah.
Right? Because in offset, obviously, the higher number you kind of achieve at, the costing is reduced because of that.
True.
But something that's more instinctive, zine format, it becomes very difficult to manage the costs of something like that. And so you say, okay, fine, I'll do batches of 15, 20, 30, how much so ever. And having a printer, of course, helps a lot in these scenarios where you can then have agency over controlling that dynamic. And so I know Institute of Daily Objects was kind of part of, in some ways, this research of going and actively looking for local histories in that sense, right? But at the same time, like Pakistani Trees, which is another, zine book.
It's the photo book,
Yeah, it's the book, right? And Pakistani Trees is more of something that's created out of a quiet observation, but yet within, that same format of traveling through land and observing landscapes.
True.
And I was wondering if maybe we can talk a little bit about how that emerged. And
you want to show the book?
Yeah, I can speak.
You speak and I can show you.
Yeah, okay. So this is the book. It's called The Legend of the Pakistani Trees. One second. I will just.
I spoiled it.
No, it's okay. So basically, when the first print came 2 years back in Delhi, I was living in Delhi at the time.
Right.
So we got it home and thought of making the cover. I wanted to make the cover green because it's about trees, but I don't wanted to say that it's about trees. So I made like a puncture here. It shows the word Pakistani. It's like a kind of a provocation, But many people see this book because they see Pakistani. What is Pakistani about doing in this?
And they're like, what's going on here?
And it's called The Land with Pakistani Trees. This comes from this village called Turtuk. It's like, again, one more village which was in Pakistan, then it came to India, the entire story. So we've been going to that village since many, many years now. And the village is very green, it's very green, a lot of apricot trees, walnut trees,
it's
berries.
Like, for Ladakh, it's an oasis, really.
Yeah.
It's, because it's slightly of a lower altitude than Leh, and it has many fruits, etc. So it's for Ladakh, it's an oasis. Yeah.
I mean, you guys were also mentioning this is at the valley.
It's lower than Leh. That's why it's greener. Yeah. And because there's so many trees there, it's an absurd idea of calling trees as Indians or Pakistanis came to our mind because while roaming around, a friend of ours was saying, "Dekho, ye peड़ Pakistan में उगे थे, अभी हिंदुस्तानी लोग इसका fruit खा रहे हैं." So the trees which started in Pakistan and fruits are been eaten by Indian people. So that's how this idea came of the land with Pakistani trees, and I went around photographing each tree like it's a human being, like taking portraits of trees. Then
Stories of these portraits, then, right? Like,
right?
it's also the stories of these portraits are also there in some of the text that comes in.
The text is highly poem basically.
Right.
This also comes from meeting one guy whose parents suddenly became Pakistani and he was left here in India. Then he used to tell us stories how he used to see his parents with binoculars from
Right.
his because he cannot go. So there are some poems like there's like a two-line thing. It says, "Has father aged or the binocular scratched?" You know.
Right.
Then there is a graveyard there in near the village. So it says, what is a dead man's nationality? When you are dead, you are an Indian or a Pakistani. What is your nationality when you are dead? You
Right.
know. Then yeah, from there this this book developed from there, looking at trees mostly. How the trees
And the nationality of these
of
attributes
these
of these
trees.
trees.
So this is like a pendant one guy is wearing. So it says a graveyard of memories because people have a lot of memories attached to objects, no?
Right.
So keeping a pendant or a coin or I'll just read it here. You can read it.
Yeah. The land with Pakistani trees is an absurd notion of naming everything as Indian or Pakistani. Turtuk, the last village on the Indian side of Baltistan, exchanged hands from Pakistan to India, leaving the trees behind. Thus, Pakistani trees are still growing there. The photobook is an attempt to understand the lives of trees around the Indian people living in the village.
I can show the PDF also a little bit.
So, quick glance would be really.
So basically, it's absurd, right? Like, why is does a tree have nationality? That's pretty absurd. And through the book and telling the stories of the people we meet there, we are basically saying that what they had to go through is even more absurd than that, because they've been separated from their families overnight, and basically the absurdity of a line drawn on a map, what is the reality of that on the ground.
This is like a fictional letter from a friend to another friend. This letter is inspired from Kafka's Metamorphosis, because many times people don't know what is a Pakistani looking like. No, like we think, what does a Pakistani look like? So it's like an absurd, provocative letter asking. Someone is asking in the other side of the border, how do you look? Do you look like Gregor Samsa from Metamorphosis? From Kafka's Metamorphosis. So this book is like with poems. The Pakistani tree stands tall in the grass without moving. It became Indian. It came from a real story of an old person there. Actually, we were talking to him, and he said like, I was a Pakistani and then I became Indian. I didn't move out of this village.
Yeah.
So it's from there. So this book has portraits of trees mostly.
Right. No, I think it's quite beautiful to suddenly take a step back and look at the other dynamics that happen within the land once we, bring in ideas of nationhood. And I think more so today because everyone is trying to
This is
define
autumn.
what is
People
Indian,
dry the
what is
apricots.
Pakistani, and what is what. So it's just something that makes you really look at how far can we take those restrictions.
Yeah, and again with objects, like for those people there, the meaning and the importance of binoculars is so huge as compared to the importance you would have for someone like me or.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm sorry, should you put on a light? Pune is getting cloudy now, so it's. I think
you feel like it. I mean, we can see you guys clearly, but I'm sure.
Yeah, better. It's getting cloudy, Pune is getting cloudy. Monsoon rains have started.
I've been noticing you've been spending a lot of time with your plants on your story, the rain, and I'm watching the progress of your plants as the days pass. Coming back to this idea of borders and nationhood and nationless lands, I wanted to also. I don't think I remember seeing the cover of that book, but I don't think I went through it very carefully. But there's also a book that you did which was based on Manto's stories and your desire to go back to Thebault and maybe
Yeah.
smoke your cigarettes once again on that land, you know, and maybe we can talk a little bit about this.
So 2 years back, I was in Korea for a residency, and I was looking at border stories again, inspired from what we do here. And
Right.
Korea also have a very similar border conflict with North and South. Same time also after the Second World War, yeah. And this is from like a fictional story of a person who had to change his country from Toba to some other place, you know.
Right.
So that's why it says I dream of smoking in Toba because this guy is dreaming of smoking in his own village or town, whatever. So this also yeah, yeah.
You know, let's
Yeah.
talk about the book first, then I'll get to the question.
This is like this
Can you lift it a little bit higher? Yeah, thanks, Dave.
is the idea of these are found photographs from Korea, which I found an album there. There are many photos from there, and it's a narrative of this person who is trying to understand why I have to uh, leave my town to go to some other place because there's a change in leadership somehow, and that comes with this idea because I'm interested in public statues. So this idea of when leadership changes, statues also have to be changed. So with the change of statues, people have to change their houses, you know.
Right.
So it's that kind of an idea. And they're like letters, found letters. Then there are some photographs. These are found photographs also of people. So this is highly to do with memory and nostalgia, you know, of loss, the idea of loss. What happens when one have to leave something. These are all like found photographs of ID cards and stuff. So it also have a lot of poetry. It says, I left behind the apricot and the mulberry trees. Who will eat the fruits when summer come? This also is highly inspired from Turtuk
Right.
place of Turtuk also.
Think about the apricots you mentioned in both books.
So this is like
And how long was this residency program? Like, I mean, how
3 months. I was in Seoul for 3 months.
3 months.
Yeah, yeah. This is like a found photograph with a statue in the front, and then I use Photoshop to remove the statue.
Right.
So it says, do leaders actually exist, or the bags are just covering a leadership emptiness? So it's like a leadership emptiness when the statues are removed, you know. So it comes from this idea of leadership statues, public statues.
Right.
And yeah,
Also, the kind of power structures and authority, like hierarchies we create within the presence of the statue or through the presence of the statue, validated by these public displays in terms of the scale of how we present yourself.
It also comes from 2 years back. There was a spree of vandalism of statues in Uttar Pradesh, in Tripura.
Right.
When BJP came to power in Tripura, they broke the Marxist statues in
Yeah.
So 3 or 4 Marx statues, Marx and Lenin also,
Lenin.
and Lenin statues were broken down. So it was very interesting to understand ki statue torne se kya hoga, how does it what does it signify, you know, why you build or break a statue.
Right.
Yeah.
And Helen, I know that your interest in the region, sorry I'm jumping, but I realize we're getting to almost 35 minutes and there's a lot I want to discuss with you guys. But Helen, I know that you are, within your with your design interests, both within um, designing physical zine formats, but also within fashion. Uh, I'm just curious to know what your observations within this have uh, have led to. Like I know that you made your own book, I think, called Costumes with
Yeah.
something else after that, which I do not remember right now. I just saw that. But so, what was that book about, and how does that come into form?
Yeah, yeah, sure. So it's called Costumes, and I mean the title is in French, so it says Costume d'époque.
Yeah.
So we call it costumes.
Yeah.
Which means like the costumes of an era. Like if you go to a history museum, you would have whatever ancient Egypt costume d'époque. Like it's a
Right.
term you can find. And this actually talks about the Ladakhi youth and what they wear. Yeah, you can show. And this is, I mean, yeah, I guess I'm interested in fashion or like clothes and how it relates to identity in general. So like visually, I notice this kind of things. I'm interested in these things, but this is more about how in Ladakh and Leh especially, I've sort of observed that there different people come, like there are people living there are people who come there only for the summer like us, there are people who come only for traveling, and that too for different reasons. So I find that in Leh there are, everyone is sort of having a different vision of what Leh is. Like you'll have tourists from India, then you'll have tourists from outside of India. So especially maybe foreigner tourists, they come for mountaineering, so they have the full-on, you know, Kichwa equipment when they roam around the market, and they are like, to them, Leh is like wow, like so remote in the mountains, and it's so high and so rough, etc. And on the other hand, the Ladakhi youth is full on, you know, street fashion, with sneakers, with sunglasses and caps and everything. So in their mind, it seems like the decor is different, and they aspire to maybe a certain lifestyle like we can observe in South Korea or Japan. So I was just intrigued by the like this conflicting point of views and imagery of Leh, where like some people come in with a certain vision and expectation of what it is and portray on themselves that vision, and there are contradictory ones. And also I'm quite interested about the abundance of this Chinese made sneakers and how well they are copied, and how does that play in the economy, and yeah, basically.
And so this was something that you were doing out of like a research with younger people in Leh itself, right? Like I saw some, I think those photographs were part of the costume engagement workshops or something that you were doing
No, I would just go out and meet them and explain that I was just genuinely interested in that. It's like there is this outcome, but probably I would want to still work further and maybe have more time. This time I was thinking to maybe schedule a little bit more.
yeah.
This is just you know, an exploration. Like I went out with the camera and was interested in meeting young people. They were like super friendly. It was it came together pretty quickly actually. And yeah, I think this different visions that people have of a similar place, and the expectations that you with yourself, your appearance, you also, you know, sort of portray and impose somehow also on a place or on people was I mean, it still is something that I would like to explore more. Yeah.
Also, just to add, I think also it comes from our idea that because we are in Leh since so many years, we have started this art space and inviting people from outside. We don't want this same cliched image. We have decided and we agreed that we should whatever we do, uh, however, it should be of this time. It should not be frozen in the picturesque calendar. So this also
Right.
comes from the response that what is happening in Leh right now. You go to any bookshop, want to see a book on Leh, it will be about mountains and monks and monasteries.
Yeah.
So, and the reality is not that. It's a lot of things are happening. So it's also a way of documenting daily regular life,
Yeah.
what's happening with the young people
Yeah.
in the town. Yeah.
And that's why the title Costumes of an Era, sort of, because you can go to the museum in Leh, or you can see like the elder people still have traditional clothes on, and probably this is gonna go with that generation. So good or bad is a different debate, but I wanted to say that 2019 summer, this is also going on. It's
Yeah.
not just your postcard.
Yeah.
Cute and traditional, like the world is changing, so yeah, like we
Yeah.
I
can
think the changes are probably going to be more and more drastic after the
Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of geographic changes that we've seen for Leh and SE. Yeah, I think we'll get into that as well. Where good or bad takes me to the bad. Thanks for that, Helen. I was trying to how I started, then I was like, great. Let's talk about bad photographs. Debashish, do you want to show us some bad photographs?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
last year Anubhav from Jaipur, who is also our partner in Art Book Depot, he was in Leh, and he had because we have a dark room there, and he got all his negatives to be developed, etc., whatever. And he had shot many random photographs here and there. So while developing, we got this idea that why don't we make a book about bad photograph? I mean, what is a good and what is a bad photograph? We started discussing this idea that we live in a post-photographic world now. No one photographers don't have to shoot anymore, basically.
The photos are just there.
The photos are there. We don't have to shoot anymore.
Okay.
So how do we define a good and a bad photo? And we thought let's make an open call, and we select like photographs from different people around the world and create a random narrative of by bringing them together somehow. That's how this book came into being, bad photographs volume 1, because then we had this idea, the one which we rejected here, we'll make very bad photographs.
Okay.
The ones which were rejected in bad photographs will be very bad photographs. Anyway, and
No, but I remember when I read you had a call for
Yeah.
submissions for this.
yeah.
Like, what do these guys mean? What is this bad photographs scenario? And of course we found out what was brewing behind the bad photographs. Yeah, I think this might be nice to see.
Yeah.
Maybe we can do a single page or that. Okay, perfect.
So we want to say, like, what is a poor image? It also comes from this article, the in defense of the poor image, where it's about what is a bad photograph, what is a bad image. Is it only about pixelated bad images? Is it about bad composition? It is about bad because we do it, no? We photograph things and then no, I don't like it. So what is this like or not dislike it?
Also could be immoral.
Yeah, could be immoral also. Illegal, any kind of bad. So yeah, this is a submission of photographs from people from India, from Argentina, Europe, France, from Ukraine, all over the world. People have sent photographs. We selected like I don't know, 50 or 60 images. So they are related in a weird way. We thought how two images can be put together.
Right.
So it's very visually put together.
Right.
And
this is you guys and Anubhav were kind of figuring
yes.
the movie.
Yes.
Debashish and Anubhav.
Me and Anubhav, and the writing is Anubhav's. The text in the it's Anubhav's. Yeah.
Okay.
So it also has stories. Like for example, this person on the this couple, she has sent her photographs and saying that I met my boyfriend after this much time and I couldn't take a good photograph. And then there is one more photograph someone randomly sent, diversion ends. So we thought of bringing them together that their diversion is ending, you know. So it's also from these small anecdotes which are from their emails. But we wanted to make it entirely visual. Sorry?
You didn't put in these anecdotes in.
No.
You didn't want to contextualize.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I don't know if that's just a bad photograph or a bad day. But
This
so
is something.
you guys, when you were sequencing and editing through this or thinking about the format of the book, I mean, what were the factors that played a role in the stringing together of this edit?
This might be like the fourth editor. After four, I think three unsuccessful ones, this was the final which came out. So one, of course, we wanted to make it really tight. Like, how can we make something which is like really, really tight and not saying anything more than it should be, you know, somehow.
Right.
So the first one was bigger. Then what I do usually is when we print and bind, I leave the book for like 2 weeks.
Right.
And when you see again, it's very obvious, like, no, it should not be here, you know.
Right.
Somehow I don't know how to explain. ऐसे देख के नहीं ये image यहाँ नहीं होना चाहिए. Why is it here? You know, it happens like no. When you are making it, it's very difficult because no, I like this. I like this.
You're more attached to, right?
Yeah, but when you leave it for a while and then उसके बाद देखा तो नहीं, then it became like 50% lesser actually, from the second one, I think.
So that's how you that was your filtration process.
Yeah.
Yes, keep it at the back of your head and then come back to it maybe.
Yeah, it happens like 10 days baad agar you see and you realize very instantly, you know, like, nay, this is not working here.
Right.
Actually, Anubhav also saw, he also said like, no, this thing works, this thing doesn't work. So yeah, that's how things are done. And the images are structured in different ways. For example, this one, there is a strange tilt to both the images. In this one, the faces are hidden.
Right. The different.
You know, this is the people boating and there's trash about tourism somehow, how tourists create trash. You know,
so has this ever happened that, you know, like you said, that you make an edit or you create a dummy, let's just say.
Yeah.
And then you come back after a few days and you say, this is not working, we got to pivot and maybe move into a different direction or look at do you look back at any of the books and say, I want to re-edit these books into a different version now?
All the time.
All the time.
Okay.
All the time.
Right.
Thing, you know, it's actually, I find it's much easier when we work in someone else's book.
Yeah.
The sense of responsibility is greater, or are you because you're more detached? I mean, what do you think?
Yeah. I guess you're more professional, like at least the perspective is more professional, so you're more detached because especially when you make a photo book, if you have 50 images, you have to have clicked like, I don't know, 500, 300. So like it's this kind of proportion. So you have to let go and if you have done it yourself, maybe the photo is not impactful or not, you know, conveying the right message, but you remember the moment you clicked it and it was,
right.
I don't know, it was sending
the associated memories.
Yeah. So,
end up interrupting your.
I think it's much easier. We have to force ourselves to stop, basically. And I think that happens, maybe we get better and better because now, like having whatever in A3 printer investment, we can make dummies that are closer to reality. And then we select paper and I don't know, a door paper, you know, when you have found this beautiful one and this combination you want to use. So it helps to not spoil it. So you're saying, okay, now it's the deal, I'm going to print it, and that's it.
Right.
Because we make edits and design books of the residents which come for the residency. Last year we made there were 8 residents in total, like July and September session, and we made 8 books slash zines, whatever. And some people prefer to do it themselves, but some people, like there is a Japanese artist who is not a bookmaker or a photographer.
Right.
She don't know how to make a book basically. So she is a performer. She's a performance artist. So it is my responsibility to convert her performance into a book, you know, and then we collaborate somehow and create the book. So that I find that is easier for me when someone else. I think it also comes because being the artist and the designer and the printer and the binder, it's a lot of work, of course, but also a lot of process you are involved with. So it by the end you are bored with the thing. Ye kya bana diya maine, you know, like because you see it so much
that you're done with it. By the time it's ready, you're like, "Oh yeah," but
Yeah.
I want to see it. You know.
I have met people last year. 2 artists from Korea has come, and EAG, one of the artists, she's an illustrator, a really famous illustrator, and she doesn't do it. She does the drawing and she scans and sends it. And there are people who do the entire job. So it's
She's not in self-publishing formats. She's just like, I will send it to you and you create
yeah. That way, there's an element of surprise also, na, how this other guy will work with
Right.
my work.
Right. Right.
So yeah,
Also, you mentioned that you had one resident who then wanted to work on reso, right? If I'm
yes, she's the one. She's the one.
she's okay. She's the one.
She's the one. Yeah. So she's the one who there are designers who does the job for her basically. So yeah.
So I'm also curious to know that, I mean, with the residencies that do exist, and of course, guys, disclaimer: these residencies have a certain charge to them. So please read details about their residency which is on the website. I've given the website out on your chat. You'll see it in the chat panel. But some or most of these residencies also end up being a publication format or in a format, let's just say. And so what are the dynamics in which you do this? I mean, in terms of like these books are then meant for sale. So what is the relationship between you as a publisher and the resident who's there to create the work? How do you collaborate on right from ideation, conception to, you know, like you said, like one of the residents actually wanted to work with a paper that was very difficult to find, but also once you got it, it was very difficult to print from that in, you know, within the setup that you had. And so the dynamics change. So just to get a small idea of how that functions.
It really depends on each artist actually, like also like where
A little loud. Tiny. Yeah. Perfect.
Sorry. It depends on the artist, also where do they live. So does it make sense to have the production in India at all or not? Also what they want to do. So I guess we don't have like one model right now. We've had different situations with
different people, yeah.
Some are also, it depends of the degree in which they participate in the, like Debashish just said, like in the making of it. So with some of them, our role of publishers is already begun during the residency because they sort of either perform or produce the images, and then we are putting it together as a publication, and then and then distributing it. Or then it's we have a dummy as close to reality at the outcome of the residency, and that we discuss like how many do we want to reproduce, and we can distribute it, of course, in the bookstore, then have it with us when we go to art book fairs in India or outside of India as well. So it really depends.
So also, like for example, you don't print a lot of quantity. So, for example, an artist in the residency, he wants to publish it as like like she said, if the artist, if we design the book, then we already talk with the artist that we'll be the publishers.
Okay.
Right. So we, as Farside, print, bind, whatever the logistical part is involved, we do it entirely ourselves. So the artist doesn't have to pay anything to make the book get ready.
Right.
It also depends on our interest, if I like the book or not, if as a publisher I can choose or not choose, so it depends.
I mean, I was trying to figure out, what if you're in this scenario where you imagine a work is going to have a certain visuality at the beginning, and then you've kind of committed to being publishers, but the work eventually ends up formulating into being something else. And I mean, so is this a constant open-ended conversation, or are they, for anyone who's coming into the residency, are they very specified dynamics under which they work?
No, I think it's always at least one dummy for each artist is the outcome. This is what is already established for everyone, that we are going to make it together. Then, depending on the way it goes, some are more or less interested, or interested in being part of what paper and the making of it as an object. So from there, the discussion of after that what takes place comes. And because we have the bookstore, this is something each artist can see right from the beginning, like who else, which other works, we are distributing from India, from elsewhere, so they can visualize, like this, it's going to be like this, and we discuss the other opportunities. And like sometimes if a certain printing technique is preferred and we are not yet able to provide that, then it makes more sense that it's done by them or other people in other countries.
At this moment, we invest the entire money involved to print, bind, and get the book ready. And from the sales of it, the artists get a certain revenue out of the sales. It's on sales model. It's like it's not like we pay of money and
sale volume.
Yeah. And we are going to more and more book fairs and stuff. So it depends.
I was looking forward to stories about printed matter from you guys this year.
Yeah.
And it's tragic that didn't happen.
They want us in September in New York. Let's see if we can go in.
But I don't know what the scenario is going to be.
September seems very close now.
When they said it, September was like, fine.
I remember, I think I was talking to Debashish at that time, and he said, it's not happening now, but September it is. So we'll definitely, by then this whole thing will have something to release. And then I was like, that sounds good. But now we think about September and it's like already it's September.
The last summer we had Paris Art Book Fair, Berlin Art Book Fair. We're supposed to send to Singapore Art Book Fair also. So everything got cancelled. So let's see kya hota hai aage.
I think they're all figuring out how to do it.
Paris and Berlin is cancelled already. They don't do it this year.
They've already announced. Singapore was announced, right?
Yeah. Singapore, they have postponed as of now. But
but next year or something.
Oh, I don't know as of yet.
Okay. We'll keep our fingers crossed. But, so you guys are consistently bringing out different formats of publication. And I think at least with what I know and with the photographers that I have been getting in conversation with, it's a pretty difficult task to get to sell your book if it's independently produced, because your costings never kind of allow you to accommodate for commission charges, distribution charges, bookstore commissions, Amazon commissions, which are insanely high, and then you obviously have your own production. There's also there is the value of the monetary value that one puts at the artist creating their work, and then you guys as publishers, whether it's in design or in the other, in the non-tangible costs. You
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
get design or like the photography of the artist or like the 6 months that the photographer spent trying to do the work and traveling.
Yeah.
So already it's very difficult to even kind of hit a balance at costing within independent publishing structures. And so the idea of profit is obviously very far away and something that's utopian in this dynamic. How are you guys able to sustain creating so many books? Is I think the essential question. Like, how are you guys doing it? Like,
I don't know. I mean, we do not do so many in quantity, probably. So we always very it works in season, right? So like, because we also have this window for our own work, which is parallel to the residency time. So this is clearly the making time. And by inviting people in residencies and people like Anubhav, for example, also hosting the residency with us, so the ideas collide and we exchange like production, also knowledge, etc. Then we figure out like how the charges of the residency, how much books are we going to be able to produce from that, what else is planned in the year for the distribution. I think it's a balance this way.
right.
And at the same time, one also, like Helen also works independently outside of Farside also, which is, but it is like a personal way of sustaining, let's say. But at the same time, I say one thing very good is in Leh, the cost of running an art space is very, very low, which is a big burden removed from our body because we don't have to pay crazy rents to have a space. This is one. Then I think, very practically speaking, we are building more and more connections with places for paper, for printing, which can be the cheapest possible with the quality which I want, for example. So we have established connections with paper wholesalers.
Right.
So who are selling us paper at a very good price, imported paper, Indonesian paper, which good collection they have. Which also, I'm looking at कि मैं एक paper में भी ₹1 कैसे कम कर सकता हूँ. Then this is like a 4-section का book है. हाँ, this is like a 4 sections है इसमें. एक section में 4 pages हैं, तो 16 pages हैं. So it decreases the cost. If I decrease ₹1 per paper, it becomes cheaper by 16 rupees. So in 50 books, it becomes 1,000 rupees. It's very, then which I'm trying to adjust. Then the printer which we are working it, somehow he's giving us a very good price for the printing. And
I was surprised when you said it's not a Delhi printer in that sense, but actually someone.
It's in Pune. I found a guy in Pune here.
Yeah.
Actually, the thing is, we have not done offset yet. क्योंकि इतना demand है ही नहीं कि मैं offset 500 बनाऊं. I don't want to get into that, और एक का 500 बना के क्या करूंगा? मुझे 50 बनाने हैं. So it doesn't work that way. So doing digital printing, and this guy, after almost a year of printing here, there, with references from the guy who is selling paper. This paper guy, she found out from a calendar somehow, whatever.
Literally, it's we were in somebody else's shop who had, like this
sample paper.
Sample, yeah.
Then uska address,
you really like
it.
Investigative zone.
Yeah. We're like, let's go to the wholesaler sita. So went to the wholesaler and turned out a nice guy. He is giving good prices. The printer guy is giving good prices. Binding, I am doing it myself at home. Right. Because bahar se karaya, but I don't. No, they're not working for me.
Yeah.
So
you want good.
And luckily I am using tailors to bind books actually. So the tailors are giving me sections. में stitch करके देता है मुझे.
And then तुम final spine
binding I do it. And these are like, you see, these are tailor binded.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can.
tailor stitched, and I do the binding. That's why, because we have less volume, we are able to manage it. And I think also when we do events, Art Book Depot was also a reason we did Art Book Depot. Also a reason because we wanted to reach out with these books. कि ये बना तो रहे हैं, इनका क्या करें अब ना? So
आगे भी तो जाना है. Like,
yeah. Also, like you said, we realized in the book fairs in Bombay and in Delhi also. Which one? Uh,
Yeah, like basically we don't see this kind of content in India. So we thought we might as well create that stage so that the work we do and Anubhav does and the resident, the artists who come with us do, so that we, slowly there is actually quite a few books and publications. So
yeah, actually, I mean, we had quite a few participants in our book.
Yeah.
Doing
Also,
very unique voices in.
Yeah. We realized like these book fairs, this Bombay Zine Festival, and one more in Delhi, I forgot. There are huge commissions, like 40% commissions on sales. So we have stopped sending books there because no one buys them. If I'm selling the book for 1,000, it becomes 1,400. So this is also a thing we decided we will not have commissions on sales. Yeah.
That was
because वो exorbitantly expensive हो जाता है, no one buys it basically. So no point, like no one is making money. So
right. Anyhow, you're not making money now. Whatever little you put, it's also gone.
Yeah. So yeah, that's also a reason we started the bookshop in Leh also, because we thought कि एक space होना चाहिए जहाँ पे अलग-अलग लोग zine और books भेज सके और collect कर सके हम ना साथ में. So we thought कि नहीं, we had a storeroom there. It was a garage the owner built, but उसमें store था पूरा. So we made it the bookstore. Then Anubhav was there. He said कि मेरे ऐसा है, किसी के वहाँ पे एक space है, वो खाली है. Let's do something there, which led to the Art Book Depot, which we started in August last year, to the planning of it, and which ended up in January. And
I remember because when Anubhav and I think Anubhav and I spoke.
Actually, we spoke first.
We spoke first when I was in Borah at that time.
I was going to France that time.
Yeah.
Anubhav hai, so you talked to Anubhav once.
Yeah. And I was asking him, and he said, we have like a couple of rooms in like this place in Jaipur. And I was like, okay, this is sounding, I'm not sure what this place is like. And then you go there and realize it's actually like a nice old Haveli with like a central courtyard and like floors and rooms. And I'm like, yeah, we can do a festival here, like it's possible, So that was really nice. And then I know that also, even for Anubhav, he was thinking about, and I think he already has activated like the bookshop over there and the exhibition gallery over there.
Yeah.
So hopefully there'll be many small versions of this, and then we all keep feeding our publications into each other.
Yeah, sure.
Actually, this year again he was planning to come, because last year in the residencies he was also with us as like a curator and also helping in designing and everything. So this year also he was supposed to come, but ho nahi paya. So let's see.
But are you guys going to push the residency? I mean, well, I guess
we cancelled it for this year. It's only next year now.
Because of the
season. By September, so वहाँ ठंडा मौसम ठंडा हो जाता है. No point. There is problem of water and this that. So
like the residents would not get the
good experience
so it doesn't seem proper. Yeah.
So we cancel it for this year. Yeah.
So now only next year.
Only next year summer.
And are the residents for next? Because I know like Alana and stuff are supposed to come this year.
Yeah.
Are they the ones who are going to come next year, and so people apply?
We'll ask them if they want to come, but otherwise we'll also make an open call.
Okay.
So people might not want to come also.
Right. Yeah. Everyone's scenarios are going to change a lot. I think so. I know we've gone over an hour, and I'm terribly sorry, guys. But if there are any specific questions you guys have towards publishing or distribution or what these guys are up to, you can put it in. And if not, I think we've run a little ahead of time, but it was really nice. And I know that, Debashish, you and Helene are producing your own works in zines and book format. And up until now, the only outside the collective authors that you had in that sense have come out of the residency. But do you guys also take other photographers, like if there's work that you are you on the lookout for work, or do you get work specifically otherwise for publications? And I mean, what is the process for that in case someone was interested?
Yeah, totally. We always are looking for new work to co-design or to publish it. We have not in our website. There is a section that if you want to pitch for a publication or a zine for designing, then write to us. We'll be really interested, because it's like a um, rolling call where people can send in their ideas about publication to us. It's good if someone has like a basic first degree dummy, to understand how it is and all. Otherwise, also because I have managed to uh, get people who have good quality papers, good printers.
Yeah.
So it's also because all of us struggle with printing paper, and we also have to choose paper. Different books have different feeling. So the paper, it's not like a universal paper, you print everything.
Yeah.
So these things also I can, because we found out in Pune. So we thought, but also we think we can also be like the printer publisher people, but we are also interested in designing at the same time.
Yeah, because we're actually doing an online program right now, which is like initiation to self-publishing, basically. And this is, so in that, the concept development in the first place is also part of it. And this is something like through the residencies and through my work also, we're able to offer. So if someone has like genuinely also an interest, but the concept is not figured out, we can very much provide consultancy for that and collaborate at that level also.
Yeah. So in our website, in the editions section, if you scroll down, there is a paragraph. If you want to pitch for a publication or a zine, photo book, whatever, get in touch. We'll be really interested. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, guys. I think a couple of people wanted to ask you this exact question. So I'm happy that this was asked already.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Oh, sorry. What is your website link? Amy, I've put in the link on there on the chat page. If you go, it's farsidecollective.com. So you'll be able to see that there.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for joining us this Sunday evening. And it looks like Pune might be enjoying some rain soon enough. So
Thank you.
We had a little downpour today in the afternoon, and I guess now it's over to you guys in that sense. But thank you, guys, and I hope your residency comes through. And good luck, and we'll see each other soon, I think. Yeah. Okay, bye. Enjoy.
Bye.
Take care.
Next week is our last week of this marathon programming. It's going to wrap up 1 month of conversations, and we have some very, very interesting people on board. On Monday, we're going to be in conversation with Nandita Raman, whose work actually I saw when I was an intern in photography, just like my first year of photography, and she's still working on the same subject in some ways, but the work is transformed. So it's, and she's also made a very beautiful book that we'll be discussing. And Thursday we have Bobby Namarotsa from the Philippines, who's going to talk about performance in photography and also in bookmaking. And on Sunday we wrap up with a conversation with the Kashmir Photo Collective and Debashish Raja, who's going to talk about the work at the Nepal Picture Library and looking at archives and the ethics and ideologies within it, which might be interesting for you guys even I think. So I hope you're able to join us. All information is up on Instagram, and that's pretty much it. Have a good Sunday evening and enjoy your meals, guys. Bye-bye. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.